Most of the time, after talking about cougars with one of you here at the church, or in a hospital, or in one of your homes, I return at the end of the day to the company of my wife and daughter, newly grateful for the gift of health and strength. Several months ago, the cougars came closer to home when my wife, Holly, suffered a rather nasty break of her right leg that required 2 surgeries. After 6 weeks in a wheelchair, she spent 4 weeks on crutches, during which we spent several days in the emergency room and cardiac unit at Mount Sinai Hospital with my dad, who developed severe chest pains the morning after Christmas. The good news is that Holly's leg will eventually be stronger than ever, and my dad's heart condition is readily treatable. But these personal experiences, especially when set against the backdrop of the shadows of death that lurk among us as a congregation, continually remind me that life is fragile and love is precious. We should cherish both as passionately as we can. Last spring, the members of the class of 2010 at Harvard Business School asked one of their professors, Clayton Christensen, to apply his management principles not to their careers, but to their personal lives. His response, shaped by his own recent bout with serious illness, was published in the Harvard Business Review last summer under the title, "How Will You Measure Your Life?" In the article, Christensen explains that on the last day of his class at Harvard Business School, he asks his students to turn their newly learned management lenses onto themselves. He poses 3 questions. First, how can I be sure I'll be happy in my career? Second, how can I be sure that I'll be happy, that my relationships become an enduring source of happiness? Third, how can I be sure I'll stay out of jail? For those who express surprise at the third question, Christensen notes that 2 of the 32 people in his Rhodes Scholar class spent time in jail, and that Jeff Skilling of Enron was his classmate at Harvard Business School. Sometimes good people make bad choices. Christensen's answer to the first question about happiness in your career comes from Frederick Hertzberg, who asserts that the powerful motivator in our lives isn't money. It's the opportunity to learn, grow in responsibilities, contribute to others, and be recognized for achievements. Christensen's answer to the second question about happiness in relationships has 3 parts. Be clear about your primary purpose in life. Allocate your resources to ensure that you achieve that purpose, and create a culture among those you love that reflects that purpose. Christensen notes that people often say their primary purpose is one thing, but spend their time, talents, and energy to pursue another. He says, if you study the root causes of business disasters, over and over you'll find this predisposition toward endeavors that offer immediate gratification. He says, if you look at personal lives through that lens, you'll see the same stunning and sobering pattern. People allocating fewer and fewer resources to the things they would have once said mattered most. The answer to the third question about staying out of jail is to avoid what Christensen calls the marginal costs mistake. He explains that business school students are taught that when analyzing a potential investment, they should ignore sunk costs, money you've already spent, and fixed costs, money you'll spend in any case, and instead base the decision on marginal or added costs and revenues. By this logic, if a $50,000 tractor adds $75,000 of profit to your sale of radishes, you should buy the tractor. The problem with this approach, Christensen says, is that it assumes that the same factors that made an investment successful in the past will make it successful in the future. But if the future is different, and it almost always is, then it's the wrong thing to do. Maybe hearts of palm are becoming the rage, and the market for radishes is beginning to slump. Sometimes, Christensen says, people make the marginal cost mistake in their personal lives. We ignore the big picture and focus on a single action. A voice in our head says, "Look, I know that as a general rule, most people shouldn't do this, but in this particular extenuating circumstance, just this once, it's okay." The problem, of course, is that there is nothing in life other than just this once. Life comes to us one moment at a time. Just this once, then just this once, then just this once. Eventually, the vicissitudes of life will remind us that it matters how we spend the moments of our lives. Jail is certainly a wake-up call, but so is a bleak diagnosis or even a badly broken leg. And then the cougars pounce, their fangs and claws tearing at you. They ask what you have to show for the time you've spent. Do the moments you've invested, just this once, just this once, just this once, add up to an hour worth spending, or a day, or a year, or a life? The marginal costs mistake is to assume that the value of life lies in some commodity other than the moment you now hold in your hand. Just once is all there is. It's the only currency we have. The good news is that it's never too late to begin spending your time differently. Perhaps you need to focus more on the things that matter most. If so, each moment gives you a new opportunity to make a change. Or perhaps you already spend your time doing necessary and worthy things, but you're living on autopilot. The point is to address these matters on your own terms before the cougars force you to address them on theirs. The contemporary American poet Mary Oliver once watched a grasshopper hop in the grass, then feed on some sugar, then clean her face, then float away. Was this a good way for a poet to spend a summer day? She answers her own question with these lines, with which I close. I do know how to pay attention, how to fall down into the grass, how to kneel down into the grass, how to be idle and blessed, how to stroll through the fields, which is what I've been doing all day. Tell me, what else should I have done? Doesn't everything die at last and too soon? Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? Amen. I love you. May God bless us all.